Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch family wants the fight against Donald Trump. That's why they published the article in the Wall Street Journal, which they had to do, having been given credible evidence that in a 2006 scrapbook album 50th birthday party card thing for Epstein, Donald Trump contributed something for the scrapbook that was obscene. That was a doodle of his, of a female genitalia, along with a note to his buddy at the time, Jeffrey Epstein. But Murdoch wants this fight. They didn't back their way into this from the Wall Street Journal. And when I say Wall Street Journal and the Murdoch family, just think Fox News. Fox News is about to recalibrate against Donald Trump. After Jan 6th, Rupert Murdoch said, maybe not publicly, but he hasn't denied it either, that he hoped that January 6th would be the end of Donald Trump's political career and that they were intent on making him a non-person. You don't think that having spent $800 million to settle a case because Fox News fell down the rabbit hole pushed there by Donald Trump about the big lie that there was fraud in the election, that they had to settle with Dominion voting machines because of all of those crazy loonies, team crazy around Donald Trump that kept parading themselves onto Fox News, a willing Fox? You don't think that Rupert Murdoch, however old he is, doesn't want to get retribution? And Lachlan Murdoch, his son, isn't going to make it happen? What did the famous philosopher Tony Soprano once said? Revenge is like cold cuts. Yeah. Now's the revenge. I assure you that the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch wants the fight with Donald Trump, and they'll come out on top. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF. Let's talk about now that the dust has settled with the lawsuit got filed. He was going to threaten the lawsuit. Trump's going to threaten the lawsuit. They're going to publish the lawsuit because they were given 3 days advance notice by the reporter. And he had time to go to social media and start saying it's a heaping pile of crap and doo-doo, and I'm going to sue Rupert Murdoch, sue the pants off of him. I got a big colossal lawsuit. I could write all this stuff for Donald Trump. Now that that is over, and we've had a chance to look at the lawsuit. I've got the lawsuit right here. And I practice down in Florida, among other places in the country. I've seen the suit. I know what it says. I don't care about any of that. This was all a major distraction from a terrible week Donald Trump was having and everything named Epstein. Just the hits were just coming one after another. FBI scrubbing Donald Trump's names out of things. Former chief of staff taking to the airways, at least in Al Jazeera, to testify that Donald Trump's definitely in the Epstein files. Ghislaine Maxwell resurfacing to try to beg for a pardon, but keeping the story alive, even though she was convicted of being an accomplice in the sexual predator girl raping ring of Epstein. Bad week. Pam Bondi being fed into the wood chipper by the right-wing MAGA media and the right-wing MAGA social media and the right-wing MAGA who've always hated Pam Bondi. And all that's going on. So he files the lawsuit. Okay, so what? Murdoch knew that was going to happen, obviously. He doesn't care. That's the premise of my hot take. This is not something that the Murdoch family backed into. This is not something, if anybody thinks out there that the editorial board and the publisher of the Wall Street Journal allowed that article to be front page news, literally on the Wall Street Journal without the Murdoch family approval, you're wrong. You can leave it in comments. Try to convince me otherwise. It was done intentionally, obviously, by the Murdoch family. They used to have a close relationship. It was symbiotic. Especially in the first term. And Fox has always been, until recently, a reliable propagandist for the Trump administration or Trump in exile or Trump everything else. Now, they're not consistent. The Wall Street Journal has a different audience. The Fox News MAGA audience is different, but they have the common ownership of the Murdoch family. Nothing gets published, spoken, or said without the ultimate approval of the Murdoch family. So in the first term, they grew together, right? And look at all the people in Trump's cabinet that came from the Fox and Friends bench, or the Fox News commentators. I mean, every other person in his administration has a connection to Fox or the Wall Street Journal. Every one of them. From Pete Hegseth, Fox and Friends weekend anchor, now your Department of Defense secretary, to Tulsi Gabbard, the National Intelligence Director and commentator for Fox, to Carolyn Levitt, people in the communications department, everybody. So it worked for them until it didn't. And where the breaking point obviously was when Dominion voting systems finally got off the mat and stopped taking crap and being defamed by a combination of Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and anybody else that was being trotted out by the Trump administration to push the big lie that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. And they would put on conspiracy theorists, crazy, crazy crap, by the way, just crazy crap by Sidney Powell and others, and endorsed by Donald Trump, about a Venezuelan businessman leading a conspiracy of having software created by Smartmatic, but in hardware created by Dominion voting systems that flip votes from Trump to Biden. There's some vast cabal conspiracy. And they all went on the air and talked about this to Lou Dobbs, to Maria Bartiromo, to Tucker Carlson, and others. They all got their ass sued by Dominion voting systems. And then out came spilling out, because they miscalculated the Wall Street Journal, all of the internal emails and communications in which they criticized and ridiculed Donald Trump in the Fox News on-air talent. Tucker Carlson took on Donald Trump, said, and Sidney Powell and others, and Rudy Giuliani, this is crazy, crazy shit we're putting on the air. All came spilling out, with the editors not controlling the on-air talent saying, don't bring me this crazy fraud crap, this crazy conspiracy crap, or we need to do it for our audience and to build our audience and to feed our audience. All this spilled out in the open in filings in the Delaware court where the case was handled, Delaware Chancery Court, in a motion for summary judgment where all of the emails and texts were attached. It led to the depositions that didn't go well for Rupert Murdoch and Lachlan Murdoch. That also became public. The general counsel at the time, who got fired from News Corporation after Rupert Murdoch's testimony, trying to placate his boss instead of doing the right thing and tell him the truth, said, I think your deposition went well. He said, well, I don't think you were in the room then. Even Rupert Murdoch knew his deposition didn't go well. And they ultimately settled for $758 million to Dominion. Smartmatic is still suing them in New York State Court. That case is still proceeding. At that time, and at the time of Jan 6th, Rupert Murdoch told people, and it's been reported and never denied, that he hoped that this would dash finally Donald Trump's political career and that he should be a non-person, at least as far as Fox News is concerned. That didn't happen. That obviously didn't happen. But that's the break. And now, I don't know what coffin Murdoch is trying to place Trump in, or Trump has placed himself in, but Murdoch is trying to nail that coffin shut. And that's why he ran that front page article. And that's why he was willing to take on Donald Trump. Also, he knows he's got the defenses. He knows that it was properly researched and corroborated. I'm sure the lawyers at the Wall Street Journal, at Dow Jones, which owns the Wall Street Journal, vetted this to within an inch of its life with the reporters. Let me see the evidence. Let me see the scrapbook. Let me see the card. Let me see what you're relying on. And they also said they spoke to people who worked on the prosecution in the Department of Justice. That means FBI, and that means the U.S. Attorney's Office for New York, where Maureen Comey, who just got fired, used to work, who's cooperating. Who is corroborating? There is people in the FBI and the Department of Justice, maybe former, who are corroborating for the Wall Street Journal, or they wouldn't have run the article. And once you have 2 or 3 corroborators, you run that article. And then if you get sued, Donald Trump has to prove actual malice, meaning reckless disregard for the truth, or that they knew it was true or false. That's one. He has to prove that, Donald Trump. And he'll never be able to do that because they, as they've said in their press release, we stand behind the credibility of our reporting and the vigorous, rigorous reporting standards that we employed. Of course, they've got Donald Trump by the short hairs. They've got the witnesses who saw the scrapbook, and they've seen it themselves, along with the body card that was pasted into this scrapbook, and others that were in there have had to corroborate that or not been able to deny that it's theirs. Alan Dershowitz is in there. Of course, Alan Dershowitz is in there. Remember, he was accused by Virginia Giuffre, who just committed suicide, who was 14 or 15 when she was raped, according to her allegations, by Epstein. And she had charges against Dershowitz. And they have a close relationship, right? So all of that happens. Dershowitz is in there. He's like, well, I might have had a thing in there about Vanity Fair and some reference to Jack the Ripper and Jeffrey Epstein. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. I'll put you down for yes, that's your work. That's the problem. It's not a single card pulled out of somebody's backside that claims to be Donald Trump. It's pasted into a scrapbook album birthday card. And that's why it is obvious to me that Murdoch wants this fight to throw the dirt on the grave of Donald Trump. And he's willing to risk the ratings for Fox. Now, some MAGA already abandoned Fox News. It's hard to believe. I don't even know where they went. Maybe they went to Newsmax, or they just kind of fell down the rabbit hole of the dark web, went into the QAnon sites, just focused on social media, influencers peddling their conspiracy theories like Laura Loomer, and the list goes on. Or they followed Tucker Carlson over to whatever he's doing on YouTube. So they left already. So he already took the hit. And they're still standing, and they're still making money. And it's still a viable network, but he's willing to make a little bit less money at 98 years old, apparently, over this issue. I'm not saying he has integrity. I'm not saying he has character, but he's willing to take another hit over on Fox. Wall Street Journal, MAGA's not reading Wall Street Journal. I mean, some are, but mainly that's a whole different financial services, country club, Republican world that reads the Wall Street Journal. I read it to prepare for my job, but along with the Financial Times and some other, Bloomberg and the rest of the financial reporting, Investors Daily, things like that. But I assure you, the lawyers having vetted the article, grilled and cross-examined the reporters, looked at the evidence and corroborating testimony and evidence for themselves before they gave the permission or blessed the publishing of that article. And there's a reason, because Wall Street Journal didn't have to break that story. They could have passed it off to another entity. They could have let another entity make the report. Another news agency, Midas, could have broken the report and the like, but that's not what they did. And this is because this is the final countdown and showdown between Murdoch and Trump. And my money is on Murdoch, who first of all has more money than Donald Trump by a lot. Donald Trump may be floating up to $6 billion, but that's a lot of multiples short of what the Murdoch family wealth is, And he can go, what's going to be next? Murdoch should have his, whatever his visa is to be in the United States revoked because he's not American, or, he's Australian. Donald Trump just wakes up and figures out he's from Australia and the like. But I'll continue to follow this right here on Legal AF. Take a moment. As you can see, independent commentary on an independent channel not owned by corporate media is so important right now. Help support it. No money. Hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment. Support Legal AF, the podcast, over on the Midas Touch Network and on wherever you pick up your audio podcasts from. Follow me on The Intersection, a new podcast on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. on the Midas Touch Network. Hit our Legal AF Substack. Subscribe there for free. Subscribe here for free. No paywall. Just listener and viewer support. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.